Today's guest is one of the heroes of the environmental movement globally and has been a hero of mine for about 33 years. So that's all I'm going to say because I want to get into this conversation right away. So without further ado, John Seed, welcome to the Plant Yourself podcast.
Thanks, Howie.
Thank you. So I'd love to have you just begin by just sort of telling a little bit of the story of you.
Yeah, well, so let's see, 1992, I moved into activism in 1979 when I just accidentally found myself embroiled in what years later we realised was the first direct action in defence of rainforest, not only in Australia but anywhere in the world. And I was there because some neighbours had appealed for help. This was something going on in the neighbourhood. I didn't know that there were rainforests in the neighbourhood. I didn't know what a rainforest was, but I was into helping the neighbours. And so I showed up on day one and something happened to me that I still haven't recovered from. I can't really explain, but all of a sudden everything shifted into a different frame, a different perspective, and I understood that, I'd found my mission, and that was to protect first this rainforest and then eventually rainforests all over the world.
And what was the threat to this particular which rainforest was it?
So this was a place called Terania Creek in northern New South Wales, a subtropical rainforest, and it was part of what had been called the Big Scrub. Less than 1% of that remained in 1979. All the rest of it had been cleared for agriculture or for logging. And in this case, there was a logging operation starting, and we ended up standing in front of the bulldozers and climbing up into the trees and so on. And at that time, no one had ever seen anything like that before, and so we were in the fortunate position that everything we did was first item on the news night after night, and so it was quite easy to communicate, what we were doing to the Australian people, and they responded such that, like in 1979, no one had heard of rainforests, but 2 years later, an opinion poll found that more than 70% of the people of our state of New South Wales wanted an end to rainforest logging, and not only was Terania Creek protected at that time, but we got a string of national parks stretching, nearly 500 miles from north to south.
And you said so. This was a huge, like almost instantaneous transformation. What were you before this moment?
Well, immediately before, I was a sort of a hippie farmer, Buddhist meditator. We'd built a meditation center and we're organizing meditation retreats and growing our own food, building our own houses, delivering our own babies, and living the sort of 70s dream.
And so, and somehow it predisposed you to the activism? Because when I think of sort of Buddhism and sort of spirituality, there's almost there's strains, at least in my limited understanding, of kind of a detachment that the thousand things are an illusion, and that we need to work on ourselves. How did bringing activism into that impact the mix?
Well, it was very disturbing because, as you say, it didn't align with what I understood to be Buddhism at all. And so I felt like I was losing my mind or losing my way or losing something. And it was only some time later that I found another strain of Buddhism called engaged Buddhism through teachers like Thich Nhat Hanh and my own teacher, Joanna Macy. So there is an element of Buddhism, as there is an element, I think, of all of the major religions which do align with, defending nature and defending the earth.
And yet, when I think of sort of protests against bulldozers, I don't necessarily think of it as sort of acts of love and nonviolence. Is that, so you sort of found Buddhism that could be engaged. Did the Buddhism inform the activism?
Well, I mean, I was one of the few Buddhists involved, and so it certainly informed my activism. But in fact, the sort of the hippie, the hippie ethos of that time was all about nonviolence. And I remember some weeks into the action when we'd had a rally that attracted 2,000 people, and all of a sudden the state and the logging companies realized that this was serious and that they had to do something. And so the next weekend, the machinery was left in the forest unguarded for the first time because it was insured, obviously, and they were hoping that we would damage the machinery in some way and lose our credibility thereby. And indeed, when they got back to work on Monday morning, they found that someone had cut the electrical wires on the bulldozer and someone else had expertly repaired them. So, it wasn't, we weren't a homogenous group. There were different strains to that group of activists, but there was never any violence towards people. And there were some people who believe that you can't be violent towards a hunk of metal. Violence is, but the trouble is the people who own that hunk of metal feel differently about it, and if they respond to sabotage by some kind of physical attack against persons, then whoever sabotaged the machinery has to wear that. It's clear that that the people who own the machinery would think of it as being violent.
So fast forwarding. So in 1979, you had this string of victories. I imagine it was pretty heady and led to probably what seemed like very justifiable optimism. So what next?
Well, I mean, some friends and I started the Rainforest Information Center. At that time, there were no organizations in the world dedicated to the protection of the rainforests. And although I'd started out in complete ignorance, I quickly came to understand that the rainforests are the very womb of life. They're home to more than half of the species of plants and animals in the world. And they were disappearing at a horrendous rate, so that at that time, at those rates of destruction, less than a single human lifetime remained before they'd be utterly annihilated. And so clearly we were in the middle of the sixth mass extinction, and the rainforest was the scene of the crime. And so we started the Rainforest Information Center and began looking for allies and seeing what we could do elsewhere. First in Australia, in 1982, we had a huge action down in Tasmania for the temperate rainforests in the southwest of that island state. And that was the biggest such event in Australian history. More than 3,000 people came from all over the country to this remote wilderness. More than 1,500 of us were arrested. And the dam that was going to be built, that they'd started to build a dam to flood the heart of the rainforest wilderness by damming the Franklin River. The dam was stopped and a national park was declared. And 2 years after that, we were up in the tropical rainforests 3,000 miles to the north in far north Queensland and had similar successes there. So it was very, empowering and heady, as you say. But at the same time, it was becoming clear that during that first half of the 1980s, for every forest that was being protected worldwide, 1,000 forests had been lost. And clearly there was no way to save the planet one forest at a time, that unless we could address the underlying psychological or spiritual disease that allows modern humans to imagine that we can profit from the destruction of our own life support systems, clearly these actions would amount to nothing as far as the future of the world was concerned. And so this was when I started to explore philosophy, I suppose, trying to understand why humans behave in such a self-defeating manner.
Mm-hmm. What did you discover?
Well, I mean, there was a number of clues. Paul Ehrlich, who was the professor of ecology at the University of California, he said that we are sawing off the branch that we're sitting on. A really beautiful metaphor, because regardless of the value of the timber in that branch, clearly a foolish thing to do. And James Lovelock, who popularized the Gaia theory, the idea that the Earth itself is alive. It's not just a lump of rock with life mysteriously blooming on the surface, but the Earth is a living, integrated organism. He said that what we're doing to the forests is as if the brain were to decide that it was the most important organ in the body and started mining the liver. So, it's a great metaphor also. This very intelligent brain, technically adroit, able to contemplate this operation, but clearly deluded, not understanding that it can't profit from mining itself. And so this led me to the philosophy of deep ecology, which sees that this illusion of separation between ourselves and the rest of the natural world, which kind of echoes Lovelock's the illusion of separation of the brain from the liver, that it's this illusion of separation that underlies all of the symptoms of the environmental crisis. And he proposed that this illusion of separation was a result of anthropocentrism, or human-centeredness, the idea that human beings are the center of everything. And he said that this was so deeply embedded in our culture, stretching back at least as far as the Old Testament, where we learn that man is to subdue and dominate nature, and nature is to be in fear and trembling of us, that he said we won't be able to think our way out of the mess that's been created. He said that ecological ideas won't save us. What we need is ecological identity, or ecological self. And so that set me on a new kind of trajectory to try and Arne Næss said that he was the professor of philosophy at Oslo University and himself an activist, and he said that what were needed were community therapies to heal that illusion of separation. And so I began a search to see if I could find some way to actualize that and to find those community therapies. And meeting my next teacher, Joanna Macy, in 1986, I did indeed embark upon that road of designing and facilitating such processes.
Mm-hmm. So one of the debates that I've followed in the environmental movement is it's around, sort of level and time, where there are people who are, let's say, more militant, like we have to, we don't have time to change people's underlying identities, and the violence is being committed against us, against us liverites and humans. And then there's, we've got to fight back with whatever means necessary, whether it's, the monkey wrench gang, blowing up dams, or, Derek Jensen's ideas. And then there's this sort of, from Buddhism, or, it's what you learned from Joanna Macy around, it's all about consciousness. And if we, so there's that Audre Lorde quote, the master's tools can't dismantle the master's house. How do you see, this many years on, having seen so many victories and defeats, how do you balance those two perspectives?
Well, I feel as though I've been given my work to do, and I'm not at all... I feel a little bit as though there's an amoeba and it's sending out these pseudopods in many different directions looking for a way out of the trap. And it's not clear to me which of those, if any, is actually going to find the way. So I'm in the let a thousand flowers blossom school. I love Derek Jensen's work. I was a guest on his podcast for the second time recently. I love the Monkey Wrench Gang. I spent a lot of time touring with Earth First, but I was the kind of non-violent wing of Earth First. I didn't denounce them because of their predilection for sabotage, and I'm not sure. It's not that I felt like I necessarily had I was right and they were wrong. It might be that you'd need both of those things. You need some people taking one position and some people taking another. I remember one of the things that Earth First taught me was that it was back in the late 80s, I think, there was a bill, I'm pretty sure it was in Colorado, where the Sierra Club or someone was wanting more wilderness, and for argument's sake, let's say that they wanted the amount of wilderness in the state increased from 1.5% to 2.3%, and there was this bitter struggle going on. And Earth First came out and they called for 45% of the state to be wilderness and said that actually it should be more than half because there was all of these other critters that had every right to be there just the same as humans, but to show how reasonable they were going to settle for 45%. So it's not that they necessarily thought that they were going to get 45%, but it had to strengthen the hand of the Sierra Club, who all of a sudden looked like the kind of moderates that they are. And, so I see it's just like there are the two sides sitting at the table, negotiating, and that's important. And then there's the rabid dog running around underneath, biting at their ankles. And that just helps the process along as well, I believe.
Wow. Is that a common perspective in the environmental movement of this sort of, big tent appreciation? Because it feels like there's very often sort of the narcissism of small differences that makes, Greenpeace and the Sierra Club hate each other more than they hate, oil companies and timber companies.
Yeah, well, that's always been the weakness of the left, or, whatever you call it. I'm not at all. I don't feel like I have an overview of the environmental movement, but it wouldn't surprise me if it turned out that that the position that I take isn't necessarily popular or common, but it's just where I find myself.
Right. So I'd love to explore I guess what's now called the work that reconnects, the processes that you and Joanna Macy developed. And I want to do it from a very sort of personal space because I feel like I want to be there and I'm not. So it's like I have this, this aspirational identity as someone who can commune with trees and walk down the street and understand what the crocuses want of me. And yet I'm such a creature of the human-built world that it's all sort of aspirational, and it just feels like it's happening in my head. And so I'm very curious how you took, people like me, sort of well-meaning, Western-fed intellectuals, and you got us to actually develop this identity of kinship.
Well, first, I'd say that it's based upon having certain experiences that, as Annie said, it's not a matter of having the right thoughts. That you can have any thoughts. I used to think that as an environmentalist, my job was to raise awareness, that once everyone was aware, we'd be okay. Wrong. Everyone's aware. We're far from okay. And so with the work that Reconnects, or the Experiential Deep Ecology, which is kind of what we call it in Australia, but it's the same thing, people surrender to a series of experiential processes where it's not something that is being taught intellectually, but by sharing these experiences together, profound change takes place. And I was kind of, at the beginning, I was kind of bewildered by the first process that Joanna and I created. We called the Council of All Beings. And we still do that. I'd had a workshop in Melbourne last weekend. I'll be having a workshop in Sydney this coming weekend. And both times part of the workshop will include the Council of All Beings. And in the Council of All Beings, we find an ally in the non-human world and learn how to invite that ally to speak through us. We offer our voice to that ally. And everybody's in your position. When they start, it's just like, oh, goodness, give me a break. But all that you've got to do is just, kids have no trouble with this. So just remember what it was like being a kid and jump in and see what happens. It's not necessary to believe anything. You don't have to believe that that really is the voice of Beaver or what, but invariably, when we just allow this to happen, we hear conversations that we've never heard before, and they're profound. They're deep conversations take place. And a couple of years after meeting Joanna, I had the privilege to witness a ceremony being conducted by some Indigenous in the southwest of the United States, some Hopi on a mesa. The whole village was involved in this ceremony, just a handful of us outsiders watching. And to my astonishment, they were doing the Council of All Beings, which I thought Joanna and I had invented a couple of years ago, but which they assured me they'd been doing for 10,000 years without a pause. And as I then studied the matter further, I found that I couldn't locate a single example of an Indigenous society that had maintained its ceremonies that didn't have ceremonies that allowed the people to regularly stop their day-to-day and to honour all our relations, to honour the earth, to sink our roots deep into our ecological identity. And so I feel now that the reason why the experience is so profound for everybody who participates in it is what Joanna says is that it's the intention that brings us together that does all the heavy lifting. That when there's a separation between human beings and the rest of the natural world, it's all coming from our side. The earth never pushed us away. And the moment we make a gesture of reconciliation, the earth comes rushing back in because we are connected. I mean, it's like we can understand intellectually that every cell in my body is descended in an unbroken chain from the first cell of life on earth. So we've studied the evolution. We understand this intellectually, but that isn't part of our identity until we move back into a kind of a ceremonial and ritual that where we demonstrate this to ourselves so that we have it as an experience rather than as another thought bubble. And so what I would say is just take a weekend and join any work that Reconnect. There's lots going on all over the States. Just join any of them. You don't need it's got nothing to do with the skills of the facilitator. All that matters is the intention of the people that brings them together. And then it all happens by itself, and it's always like profound, and it will be profound for you. And it doesn't matter how, how much a creature of the 21st century you are, because we're all in the same boat, actually. Of course, people who spend, 3/4 of the year in the wilderness are in a much better position to get in touch with this. But I found that invariably people, especially, I think, I don't know how much you know about the work that Reconnects, but it's based on a spiral, and the spiral starts with gratitude, and then we move to something that Joanna now calls honouring our pain for the world. And in this we learn that we live in a culture of denial where our feelings of anguish and terror and rage about what's happening to our world are never welcome. We've been taught to suppress these feelings. We've been taught that these feelings are dangerous. If I were to fully experience the depths of the horror and rage that I must be feeling about what I know is happening to my world, surely I would be crushed. That's why I have to keep these feelings away. Wrong, says Joanna. They're just feelings. They're just part of our humanity. Indeed, they're part of our intelligence. That when we look at our history, our pre-human as well as human history, we can't help but conclude that every single one of our ancestors was intelligent enough to reach the age of reproducing itself before it was consumed, without exception. And for 4,000 million years, not a single ancestor that failed to meet that test. And 99.99999% of that intelligence preceded cognition. It was before we grew this lump over our nose and started thinking our way through the world. So what we call feelings is what remains in us of this ancient intelligence that has stood the test of time and that unerringly led our ancestors to be able to distinguish what was safe and what was dangerous, and when to flee and when to fight, and all of these things. So as we suppress what, you can call it intuition, you can call it instinct, but what we call feelings is what remains in us of this ancient intelligence, and we suppress that at our peril. So when we get together in the work that reconnects and we create a safe container, that's what Joanna has taught us, how to create a safe container that invites these feelings, that honors these feelings. It's unlike anything that, people who are new to this have never experienced anything like this before, because there's nothing in the world that is like this. But, there may be someone just screaming in rage, people are weeping, and at the end of it, it's the next process after honouring our pain for the world is called seeing with new eyes, because honouring our pain for the world washes the scales away from our eyes and we can see the world afresh. And Joanna when I met her in 1986, she called this despair and empowerment. That what she found was that when people had the courage, when people would get together in a group and invite their despair and honour each other's despair, that the upshot was empowerment, that, these feelings are pushing up with instinctual force, that natural selection behind them, that any mammal that is running towards something wagging its tail when it should be running away as fast as it can doesn't leave its genes in the gene pool, that the accuracy of these feelings is honed in every single generation, that it's only, that this is part of our survival mechanism, so it's pushing up with that energy behind it, and we're pushing back with an equal and opposite force of social conditioning and, no one will like me, I'll be so embarrassing if this, if this explosion took place. And a huge part of our life force is frittered away in this futile struggle between instinctual feelings and the social, suppression. And what remains is a sense of helplessness and hopelessness and what can one person do anyway? And I know what's going on in the world, but I feel paralyzed, And so all of that vanishes. It's amazing. All of that vanishes when people do the despair work. And then this incredible feeling of empowerment sweeps through the circle every single time. So, and that was a long answer, but the short answer is please do check it out. Just go along to a work that reconnects one day and you'll understand.
Yeah, so I'm running this through my own experiences in sort of a therapeutic world as the recipient and then as a facilitator. And what people come for individual healing for is those feelings, right? The feelings of that they can't get away from, that they can't override, that they can't rise above. Like they may not know that they're being bothered by the destruction of some plot of land in the Amazon, but they know that they're miserable and they're alienated and they're lonely and they have tremendous feelings of guilt or fear or anxiety that they just want to get away from. And I'm hearing you say that those feelings are instinctual and they can guide us in the right direction. So how do I square that circle? If people come and they're like, terrified of everything. And we're saying those feelings are your inheritance of 4 billion years of success.
Well, I mean, there's a whole field of what's called eco-psychology, which was, I guess, started in some ways by Theodore Roszak, who was at the University of California in the 60s, a historian, and James Hillman, who was a Jungian analyst, maybe still is. I'm not sure if he's still alive or not. But, it's interesting that in my introduction to the what we call the Truth Mandala, that's the name of the ceremony that we do to honor our pain for the world, to invite these feelings out, to create a safe container for these feelings, I quote an exchange that Thich Nhat Hanh, the famous Vietnamese Buddhist meditation teacher, monk, had an exchange with some of his students where once they asked him, they said, "Sir, what is the most important thing that we can do for the healing of our world?" And his reply was, "The most important thing we can do for the healing of our world is to hear inside ourselves the sounds of the earth crying." So that's interesting because on the one hand, why would that be the most important thing? And the only answer I could come up with is that if we're not prepared to hear those cries, how could we possibly be in a position to address them? We have to open ourselves to feeling the pain of the earth in order to do anything about it. But in the context of your question, the other piece is, it says to me, oh, you mean that those cries that I've been hearing inside myself since I was a kid aren't necessarily just my biographical material. My mum didn't love me, or she weaned me too early, the traumas that I suffered and so on. Do you mean that that might be the earth that I hear crying inside me? And that's very challenging because we've been taught to frame the thing because of the separation that our culture, our culture says we're separate from the world. We're not in a position. The world is dead. It doesn't have feelings, The earth doesn't cry. Only humans cry, and only humans cry for human things, And so, it just blows the thing wide open. If that is not just the cries, and not only the cries of my own biography, but that's the cries of the earth. If the earth was crying, where would the cries be heard if not in the human heart? Where else could they possibly be heard? And so it kind of releases the possibility that instead of going to see a therapist, I might decide to be an activist to do something about those cries because they aren't, and so, of course, there are the personal traumas, there are the injuries that we've suffered, and I'm not trying to belittle that side of things, but I must say things have changed for me a lot since I understood, what Joanna was saying and what Thich Nhat Hanh was saying.
Yeah. So, thank you. That's. I'm feeling that answer in my heart, and I'm wondering, like, we can romanticize sort of more, traditional cultures, native traditions, and I want, so I'm wondering, like, do they have less of this sort of, individual angst through their understanding of togetherness, of connectedness, of a nature-based identity than we do?
Well, I don't know the answer to that, but the thought that pops into my mind is I don't know if you're familiar with Francis Weller's work into grief and sorrow, but he spoke about different kinds of sorrow, and one of the ones that he mentioned that I find very interesting is the sorrow that comes from the things that we were led to expect when we were born didn't show up, So we were led to expect a breast, and if a piece of rubber is shoved into our mouth, there's a sorrow associated with that, And if we were led to expect that we would be surrounded by people who knew us, and that we would walk outside our door and there would be familiar faces smiling at us. And instead we walk out in the middle of the city and nobody looks into each other's eyes, you know? And so for that reason, I would guess that there are sorrows that we who are so alienated from our, our true nature, from our true identity. We've been just sold this bill of goods that I'm nothing more than a skin encapsulated ego, that I'm inevitably estranged from. Like maybe there's one other human being or a few other human beings that I can love, but that I'm cut off from the world. So the kind of processes that we do, they're really simple, but it's amazing how profound they are when you spend a lot of time together with people, is that we just add, for example, consciousness to, we understand intellectually that our life is a result of the exchange of gases between ourselves and the plant kingdom, that the oxygen that we breathe is created by the plants, and we return carbon dioxide to them in exchange. And this ancient cycle of partnership has been going on since both of our ancestors, the plants and the animals, were single-celled organisms in the ocean more than 2 billion years ago. That's when it started. And so when we add consciousness to that, so one of the things that we might do just for 5 minutes in the work that Reconnects, in the seeing with new eyes piece of it, is that we just go outside together and we deliberately exchange gases with the green things around us. With each out-breath, we're invited to feel a kind of abundance and generosity, to remember the incredible gift of the gases that we exhale for the green world. And with each in-breath, we remember the gift that we're being given in exchange, and we allow ourselves to feel deep gratitude to the world for providing us with this breath. And we exchange gases, and the request is made that just notice what happens when we add consciousness to this, because this is going on all the time. In every single breath, we are proving that there is no out there and there is no in here. It's all cycling through itself. It's all cycling through each other. That's the reality. But we don't experience the world in that way because we've lost the ceremonies that all Indigenous people, including, of course, our ancestors, were all Indigenous, were all pagan, were all animist for 250,000 years until very recently. And now we've gone and, got lost in the desert. We've estranged ourselves. But what the work that Reconnects shows us is that it's really simple finding your way back. That anybody who is willing to take the risk of just feeling really stupid, having wasted the whole weekend with a bunch of people doing woo-woo kind of, nonsense, take the risk that that's what, what's the worst thing that's going to happen, is that you feel like an idiot because what a waste of time. That never happens. Every single person at the workshop is swept away by the consensus of, the feelings that sweep through the whole group, where we just have this feeling of coming home to the world, coming home to each other. And I don't know. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
I guess.
Well, that's great. It reminds me of a phrase that I've heard recently from eco-philosopher David Abram, who says we're members of the Commonwealth of Breath.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I love how close that at hand that is. Right, like my listeners now could go out and do that this moment. Although I'm also hearing that what can I can't remember where the quote comes from. It might have been Bill McKibben, where someone said, like, what can we do as individuals? And he said, stop being an individual. Right. Right.
Yeah, beautiful.
So,
well, I mean, it's when something that I've done previously on podcasts is, and maybe if we ever do this again, we should do this, no, it's not so much podcasts, it's webinars where people know beforehand, so people sign up for something, and then I invite everybody to either sit by an open window with something green outside the window, or have a plant like that beautiful plant behind you in the room, and face that plant, and we spend 5 minutes doing this online, and then we do a sharing, either a voice sharing of the participants, or people share what they experienced in the comments, and it turns out it's just as powerful to do it even when we're separated, by electronics, that just to be part of a circle of people, and it's, of course, can be a much larger circle on a webinar than it can, sitting in a field together, and where you just realize that I am exchanging gases with the world, and simultaneously scores or hundreds of people are doing the same thing, and we become like, there was a great band in London when I was there called the Brotherhood of Breath.
Huh. Nice.
Yeah.
So one thing that I struggle with, so, I sort of have a protean living where I do some writing and training and teaching and coaching, and there's months that are great and there's months that are thin, and there's always this impulse to, go where the money is. And in my world, where the money is usually not the people who are preserving the rainforest, but in some sense extracting or exploiting, even if it's, making electronics or, whatever folks are doing in this society. That to make money is almost always to extract from the earth without reciprocity. And so I'm wondering how you could help me think about making a living, and also there's, this whole view like abundance, like there's all these ways of thinking about abundance from breath, or from like the world is going to give me what I need and I can live in a beautiful place, and there's other people who can't, and, help me think through that from a deep ecology perspective, if you would.
I'm not sure that nothing's coming to me straight away, Howie. And I'm not sure that deep ecology, that my understanding of deep ecology is very helpful there. I mean, what this may turn out to be a tangent or not, but for me, what is it that we're looking for? What is it that we want? We want to feel okay. We just want to feel okay. And that includes feeling safe. And that includes a certain level of security, that not only are we feeling safe now, but things are set up in a way that we're likely to be feeling safe tomorrow, So we want that. But we've been sold this story by the culture that we, grew up in, that in order to have those feelings, we need stuff, And so the advertising industry, to me, economics is a religion. That it's not a science. It's a religion, and it's a religion that's based upon absurd kind of premises like infinite growth is possible on a finite planet, and so on. And but this religion. If we look at economics as a religion, then advertising becomes religious education. And what I can say about that is that there is more money spent on religious education than all other forms of education combined worldwide. More money goes into advertising than universities and schools and all of that thing. And so that is because the system needs us to feel hungry for something that we haven't got, needs us to feel that there's something missing, and then the advertising can say, this leaf blower is going to fill that hole, this jet ski is going to do it. Once you have this, you're not going to feel that way any longer. You're going to feel all right, you know? But of course it doesn't work. It's just like, Charlie Brown kicking the football and Lucy yanks it away. It's just like that every step of the way. And it doesn't matter how many billions they've got. You've never met anyone who's got to the end of that where they go, oh, that's enough, do you know? Mm. And so the thing about deep ecology is that when we fall in love with the planet, when we allow ourselves to feel this surge of connection, and when we realize that love is one of the many gifts of the planet, that the universe is just this splendid kind of place that's full of wonder and mystery, and then in a way, it's enough. Do you know that it's not that it's so. I guess my question is it easier to figure out an ethical way to make a bunch of money, or to figure out a way to need less of it in order to feel satisfied and all right, just feel okay. So I'm not trying to put myself out as an example of someone who's reached the end of some road or anything. I'm not. I'm just a broken individual like all of us, and I'm not trying to say that I've solved the riddle of the universe or anything like that. But I do know that when we do a weekend of the work that reconnects, at the end of it, people in the last sharing circle, people express this tremendous feeling of relief of their suffering, this tremendous feeling of connection and having come home, and of joy and love. And we spent 48 hours together and consumed nothing more than the food that we've eaten, and it's cost the world nothing, that 48 hours. So there are things that you can do which feel just as good as owning a Ferrari, but that don't have the costs involved. So locating those is the closest that I can get to answering your question.
I think you've come pretty close. I appreciate the tangential nature of the answer, because it feels like it came in unexpected to a different place. So it feels like a deeper exploration for me. So thank you. So I'm curious. You have spoken a lot, I guess, in the last 5 years about plant medicine helpers, and you've spoken now about the work that reconnects and the incredible healing potential of it for us as individuals, for us as communities, and as members, of the planetary coalition. And you've also spoken about your experiences, I think, with ayahuasca and with I think psilocybin. What do you see as the ways that those sort of more intensive experiences can reconnect us, can heal us? You've spoken quite openly about your own psychological processes around that. I haven't heard from you in a couple of years about that. I'm wondering if you could kind of take us through and up to now.
Well, there's no doubt that psychedelics is one of the things that where can I start? In 1972, I was 27 years old. I was living in London. I was in the middle of a really unhappy marriage. I was drinking a lot. I was a systems engineer for IBM, working in the city of London in the financial district with a three-piece suit on every day, working on the American Express account,
Wow.
And someone, pressed this powder in my hand and said, "You must take this." And I was terrified, but I did. And I can't remember what happened, but it was very powerful, and it turned my whole life around. I believe it was LSD, but of course, who knows what it was, you know. But all of a sudden, I started my life afresh. I was given the opportunity to start again. I left that marriage, I left the job, I left all my possessions, and started my life again, and I never looked back. So that's a kind of a miracle. It was not so unusual in 1972. You know, that's not such an unusual story from that period. There was a lot of people having, you know, these kind of experiences, and since then, you know, it's not something that I do frequently. You know, maybe twice in the last year, I've you know, partaken of you know, ayahuasca, and that's been my most recent sort of guide. And it's just like it feels like, you know, just that you're crawling around, you know, in the weeds, and you can't ever see very far, and all of a sudden you get to shove your head up out of it and get a look at the horizon and get a sense of perspective, and you can see where you're going, and you can see where you've come from and things like that. So I found it very helpful, but it depends entirely on set and setting, so that it means that, you know, who you are and how you're living your life and what your intention is in, you know, it's a powerful sacrament, and you know, if you're taking it as a, you know, as a way to you know, party, then maybe, you know, like that. I don't do that, but maybe it, you know, you'd have to talk to someone else to find out about what that's like.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking of it in terms of, you know, the way you describe, like the earth is reaching out to us, and we only have to stop for a moment, turn around with gratitude, with an identity of connection, and you know, so when I think about the conscious, intentional earth, Gaia, right now it's kind of mostly a thought in my head. It's a intellectual concept, but I'm thinking like, okay, the fires, like the earth is crying, it's trying to get our attention, and the rapid influx of consciousness around psychedelics, I'm wondering, is, you know, sort of like a peace party, a parlay from the earth, say, you know, this will help.
I've certainly had that thought myself. I hope it's true, you know, that I haven't received any, and, you know, particular. It's interesting that I was watching someone sent me a short clip of Ram Dass talking to Terence McKenna 30 years ago, having the same conversation. Do you know that I'm not sure that we know any more now than we did then, but it's certainly, I mean, LSD being a human created chemical, you know, you might think of it as being something very different than psilocybin growing naturally in mushrooms, but that's based on the assumption that humans are something other than mushrooms. You know, like the fact that mushrooms can create this kind of an experience, and that humans can. You know, why would the human created compound be any less valid than the one that comes, you know, than the mushrooms create? Humans are just, you know, it's just like we're all like these leaves on the tree of life, and the sap of the tree passes through all of the leaves. We're all connected. And, you know, one of the things, you know, Joanna, I once did a workshop with her where we were inside a university building somewhere, and people were feeling like, oh, this isn't going to work because we're talking about nature and this is so unnatural. And so Joanna just got us to look around the room and find something that was unnatural. And so someone found a bit of plastic, And so then, okay, now look into the history of that plastic. Where did that come from? And all of a sudden, we're back in the Carboniferous, and it's dinosaurs, and and turning into oil, and the oil turns into plastic, and then cement. And what's the cement? Oh well, it's sand and it's limestone, and like at that point, you realise that there's no such thing as unnatural. There are things that are not conducive for mammal, well-being. There are things that are poisonous and, that we should stay away from. But unnatural is itself a kind of you can contest that term and sort of say, no, there's nothing that's unnatural. It's not possible. Everything comes from the earth. There's nowhere else. There's nowhere else for anything to come from. That was Thomas Berry's great insight. He was the theologian who turned into a geologian when he realized that all of the stories that, of the Old Testament and the New Testament and every testament, they're all come from the earth, because, the 10,000 creation myths, including the one about Adam, they're all the stories that we tell to try and grasp the mystery and the enormity of the situation that we find ourselves thrust into. And it's all coming from the earth because there's nowhere else.
Yeah. Lovely, beautiful. So as we close, one of the things that you said in a previous interview that really stuck with me was that you don't, and I think you alluded to it earlier today, that you don't need trained facilitators. You don't, it's not about, I've been doing this for 30 years and you're going to have, I can guide you through this experience of the work that Reconnects or the deep ecology experiences. How can we get, what can people do who are listening to this, who want to scale this, who want to spread it, and they're not you, and they haven't been doing this work before, and maybe they're not even aligned with an environmental movement? Are there guidelines or resources for us?
Oh, well, I mean, first you've got to have the experience before you can share the experience. So the first thing is participate in the work that Reconnects. And, look it up. You'll find it. It won't be far away. Participate in it. What I'm saying is you don't need to wait for someone, is it like the workshop I'm doing this coming weekend? It's full. There's a waiting list. There are 3 co-facilitators. I'm training lots of people, but training is in a funny kind of a way where I'm just letting them realize that there's nothing to it, that basically Joanna and I and Arnie Ness and Pat Fleming wrote this book, Thinking Like a Mountain, Towards the Council of All Beings in 1988. It's kind of a recipe book for exactly what we're saying, how to do this. And so people just have a script. So this workshop coming up, because I have 3 co-facilitators, I'm actually not going to facilitate anything. All I'm going to do is a bit of an introduction and a poem here and there. And, if any of them have a question or if they miss something out, I can step in. But, when I do a workshop, I say to people, you will think that this incredible experience that we're all having is because of me. Because, you're wrong. It's got nothing to do with me. And people say, yeah, we understand. And at the end, they say, oh, you were fantastic. And I'm like, no, you didn't get it. But this weekend, that's not going to happen because I'm not going to do anything. The only people doing anything will have a script. I know it off by heart because I've been doing it for decades. They will have a script and they will read it off the script and they will mispronounce some of the words. Makes no difference. It takes us to the same place. It's the intention that does all of the work. So I guess what that says is that if you get to, whatever you want to do, find yourself a group of people that are aligned with you to share the intention, because it's a thing that's done in community. It's not something that that we can do as individuals. What we need is to create a culture of connection, like the cultures of our ancestors who, were torn from, and if it's true that, what does Star Wars say, 9 million women were burnt at the stake in the witch era, and that this was for worshipping the earth. No wonder we're running as fast as we can after that kind of an experience. But it looks like the tide has turned. It looks like it's coming back, and find some people who share these feelings and figure it out together.
Beautiful. John Seed, thank you so much. How can people find your work, stay in touch with you online?
Oh, well, John Seed, Deep Ecology will find me. And I've got, Instagram and Facebook and so on. I don't leave Australia anymore. I've kind of used up 10 lifetimes of carbon, and so the only way I leave Australia is with your help, Howie, and thanks so much.
Oh, such an honor and a pleasure. My heart is full right now, and I'm sure this is going to ripple out in ways that neither of us can predict. So thank you so much for all you do and for taking the time today.
Thank you, Howie.
And that's a wrap. Show notes for today at plantyourself.com/617. Movement news, been hanging in with my workouts, although it's been hard. I've had this bug, nasal congestion and coughing, and definitely it's been several weeks since I've been really on top of my game. But hopefully with the coming of spring, I will spring back into action. There's an ultimate tournament this weekend. I don't know how much I'm going to play, both because I'm not all there and because we have a full roster and I'm not near one of the better players on the team. So we shall see how that will go. That's about it for now. Look forward to talking to you again next week. And as always, be well, my friends.